Are you living life to the max, or are you passively existing? Mr. Rohn once said, each of us has two distinct choices to make about what we will do with our lives. The first choice we can make is to be less than we have the capacity to be, to earn less, to have less, to read less and to think less, to try less and discipline ourselves less. These are the choices that lead to an empty life. And the second choice is to do it all, to become all that we can possibly be, to read every book that we possibly can, to earn as much as we possibly can, to give and share as much as we possibly can, to strive and produce and accomplish as much as we possibly can. G'day and welcome. My name is Willem, and on this channel I share the philosophies and the wisdom that Mr. Jim Rohn shared with me over 30 years ago. By consistently applying the principles that Mr. Rohn taught me, I've been able to lead a life on my terms, and I promise you this: if you adopt the philosophies and the principles that I share on this channel and you execute on them, you can do the very same. After all, if I can do it, anyone can do it. In his book, The Soul of Man Under Socialism, Oscar Wilde says that to live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist. So what did Mr. Wilde mean by living is the rarest thing? In the book, he argues that very, very few people ever find their true purpose in life, the reason they are here, their raison d'etre. And what he says is that because we don't have a true purpose, that creates a vacuum. And as nature abhors a vacuum, that vacuum is replaced by a constant search for recognition, possessions, status, and most people go through their lives feeling unfulfilled because they never ever really find their true purpose in life. As Henry David Thoreau once said, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. So, do you have a purpose? Do you know why you're here? Are you living life to the max? Are you living your life to your true potential? That's certainly what Mr. Rohn recommended to me. He says, do it all. See as many countries as you can see. Help as many people as you can help. Earn as much money as you can. Experience as much as you possibly can. And in this video, I want to share with you 5 ideas that will allow you to start living life to the max. And if you stay to the very end, I will provide you with a PDF that lists the top 10 books that I have found have helped me to live life to the max and realize my full potential. Have you ever driven to a place and when you got there realized you had no idea of the route you took? When you get out of the shower, do you dry your right leg first or your left leg? When you brush your teeth, do you start at the top or do you start at the bottom? Most of what we do in life, in fact, over 40% of what we do in life is through habit. We don't think about it. And that's not a bad thing, because if we had to concentrate every time we came out of the shower or had to brush our teeth, we'd be pretty well exhausted by the end of the day. Habit is a good thing. But as Oscar Wilde says in his book, it's not the way to really live the life that we have been fortunate enough to be granted. To really experience life, to live life to the fullest, we need to be more mindful and less reliant on habit. As Mr. Rohn would say, we need to be there in everything we do. But how do you do that? How do you truly live rather than just exist? I've got 5 ideas that I think might help. Number 1 is to create a personal vision statement. Now, before you think, oh, I'm not into these missions and visions, let me explain. Imagine if you found a magic compass, and no matter where you were, the magic compass would show you the way home. It would show you the direction to take. That is what I have found a personal vision statement does. It gives you complete clarity about the direction you should be taking in your life. As one of my favorite philosophers said, his name was Seneca, there is no favorable wind for a sailor who does not know where he wants to go. So let's take an example. One of the items I included in my personal vision statement a number of years ago was to be financially independent. As Zig Ziglar once said, money isn't everything, but it is right up there with oxygen. And I have found that many of life's problems start because we don't have any money. You don't need to be stinking rich, you don't need to be hugely wealthy, but it's a great goal to become financially independent, where you can live off the income of your own assets and your own resources, and you're not relying on anybody else, including the government, for your income. So I found that being financially independent was a great item to put on my personal vision statement. Here's number 2, and that is set clear, concise goals that are aligned with your personal vision. Mr. Rohn taught me to live on 70% of my after-tax income. He said put 30% aside for the future, for investments. And that's what I started to do. And over time, it gave me the ability to become financially independent. Now, you may not be able to put 30% aside. It really doesn't matter. You could put 20%, 10% aside. Whatever you can, put it aside. But Mr. Rohn said this. He said, poor people spend first and save what's left. Rich people save first and spend what's left. And I think that is just such great advice. So many people live on 110% of their after-tax income, and they really wonder why they never seem to get ahead. Number 3 is this. Allocate time to work on your goals. You may have a vision. You may have goals aligned with that vision, but unless you put time on your calendar to actually work on your goals, it ain't going to happen. Jen and I have a couple of Qantas credit cards so that we can maximize the points we get for when we want to travel. But every Saturday at the same time, I sit down and transfer the money from our personal accounts to pay those credit cards off. I don't have a problem using credit cards, but I believe they must be paid off monthly at the most. I personally like to do it every week because I just don't like to see them get away from me. But that's the key. You must find time to allocate to your goals. If you want to get fitter, it's got to be in your calendar. When are you going to go for a walk? When are you going to go to the gym? If you want to work on your relationships, it must be in your calendar. When are you going to work on those relationships? I was only talking to someone this morning, and he was very stressed because he just didn't seem to have time to do everything. The kids were home from school at the moment. He's got a lot of things he has to do for work. I suggested that for him to get focused, he needed to prioritize. What was the one thing that would make the biggest difference in his life at the moment? And we discussed it, and I asked him to put it in the calendar and share his calendar with me. And I said, look, the kids are home. You don't want to neglect the children. Put time in for the children in your calendar, and then show them your calendar and say, hey kids, this is what we're going to do at this time on this day. Kids are very understanding. They just want to know where their spot is on the calendar. So don't neglect them. Okay, so that's really important. Put time aside in your calendar for your goals. The 4th rule in living life to the max, or my 4th tip for you in living life to the max, is this: minimize the distractions. Learn to say no. In my example of living on 70% of your after-tax income and investing the remaining 30%, you've got to stop the distractions that will tempt you to spend that 30%. So transfer it right away after you get paid, and make sure you can't get your hands on it. You will cope with the 70%, I promise. You just need to stop the distractions. You want to stop anything that will distract you from reaching your goal. Now, before we go to number 5, if you're finding this video useful, could I ask you to like it and even consider subscribing? I put something out that Mr. Rohn shared with me every week, and I've committed to doing that for the next 2 years. So if you'd like to join me on the journey, I would love to see you subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's go to number 5. And number 5 is this: get around the right people. Mr. Rohn said you become the average of the 5 people with whom you spend the most time. In our financial independence example, if you spend time around 5 millionaires, I promise you, you will become the 6th. If you spend your time around 5 people who live paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, you will become the 6th. It is so important to be around the right people, and make sure you give them major time. Mr. Rohn always said, spend major time with major people, spend minor time with minded people. If they're not taking you in the direction of your personal vision statement, spend minor time with them. Don't spend major time. Find people who will push you in the direction of your personal vision statement. Now, as I promised at the beginning of this video, if you would like to know the 10 books that have really impacted on my personal development, once Mr. Rohn got me on this journey, I've put a PDF together and you can download that PDF. The link is in the instructions below. So if you'd like to click on those, you can download that PDF on my top books in personal development. Now, if you found this video useful, I'm sure you would enjoy the other videos that I've done on what Mr. Rohn shared with me. They're available on the playlist up here, so you can have a look after that. Now, I would ask you seriously, if you feel that you are passively existing, I would ask you to adopt these 5 rules and really start living life to the max. Live the life that you are capable of doing. And I promise, if you do, you will thank me later.